A woman was injured in the Kherson region. The occupiers dropped an explosive device from a drone onto the house where she was staying. She suffered a blast injury and shrapnel wounds. The victim was hospitalized in moderate condition. The Russians shelled the Sumy region, attacking a service vehicle. A man who was in the car was wounded. His condition is stable. 19 people were injured in Zaporizhzhia during an enemy attack last night. Residents of Zaporizhzhia are still continuing to seek help. Our correspondent Yedyni Novyny, who is currently at one of the sites of the tragic events, will tell us what is happening now at the explosion sites and where exactly the occupiers struck. Yeva, over to you. Can you share with us?
Hello, Olya. Yes, that's right. We are currently near a 5-story building where yesterday evening an enemy Shahed drone struck. There have been many Russian strikes in our city, and people continue to provide assistance with temporary materials and clean up the area. Today, throughout the day, the material damage caused was also assessed. Since last night, utility workers have been covering windows and balconies with temporary materials so that people can return to their homes as soon as possible. More than 150 people have requested assistance. These are the people whose apartments or houses were damaged as a result of that massive shelling, according to the city council. Let me remind you that yesterday, around 10 p.m., the enemy launched a massive attack on Zaporizhzhia with drones. Residents heard about 10 explosions. According to the city council, 31 apartment buildings were damaged, as well as 20 private houses and 5 more apartment buildings. Some of them were actually on fire due to the drone strikes. What is the current condition of the wounded? Let's listen to the commentary.
5 patients are currently receiving inpatient treatment, 4 of whom are in moderate condition. And 1 patient, a 31-year-old man, unfortunately is currently in a serious condition in the intensive care unit, where doctors are now fighting for his life. All of the patients have sustained blast injuries, shrapnel wounds, and bone fractures.
The rest of the patients continue their treatment at home. And about 200 people have sought help at the points of invincibility. For details about this tragedy and the latest damage Russia has inflicted on Zaporizhzhia, watch our report. A 5-story building right in the center of Zaporizhzhia. After a hostile Shahed drone struck here, more than 20 apartments caught fire. In the near future, residents will not be able to return to their homes.
It does not appear that this will be happening in the immediate future, and there is no indication that it will occur anytime soon.
Irina says that when the massive Shahed drone attack began, she ran to the nearby cinema shelter, and when she returned, all that was left of her apartment was ruins. And her neighbor, 90-year-old Mrs. Revisa, managed to get out of her apartment on her own during the fire. The woman had just fallen asleep right before the shelling started.
I had been reading for a little over an hour, and then I said my prayers, taking a moment to reflect, and I asked God to watch over and protect our boys, to defend us all and keep us safe from harm, from this Russian onslaught. And then I fell asleep. But I woke up because something was banging. But when I opened my eyes, I saw a fire above me like on a blanket. And I just threw it off myself like this and jumped out of bed.
Anastasia and her 10-year-old daughter rent an apartment in this building. During the attack, they managed to run out into the hallway.
Honestly, I don't know. In just a few seconds, I just shouted to her. I said, Ksenia, let's go to the hallway. And that's it. That's what saved us. I don't know. Here, everything was just windows lying around. Well, yesterday we had to give her a sedative. She couldn't sleep last night. She only managed to fall asleep closer to morning. I came, started cleaning up, and she's there too, calling me every little noise. If someone slams a door or something, she's already like, Mom, what is that? And I'm scared too, and that's it.
According to Anastasia, she has already survived the second shelling. She had to spend a year restoring her own apartment where she used to live.
The windows were blown out there too. Everything had to be replaced. Everything. All at our own expense. Nothing from the state. We didn't expect anything. After that strike, we went to Kyiv and stayed with relatives there. It was only in June that we moved back. I said, I want to go home. I want to be here. That's it. I have relatives here.
As a result of the Russian attack on Zaporizhzhia on the evening of November 25th, 31 apartment buildings in different parts of the city and 20 private houses were damaged. One of the drones hit a dormitory where displaced people were living.
You know, after what I personally saw and experienced in Huliapol, I actually found myself feeling a bit calmer and more at ease here. I'm not saying I was completely calm or totally relaxed, but still, there was a noticeable difference. Compared to what I went through back there, it was much scarier and more frightening there.
Ms. Lydia evacuated from her native Huliapol 2 weeks ago. She insists that the situation with Russian shelling there was simply unbearable.
It was terrifying. I was just so scared, and I live alone in the house. I have no one. And lately, the doors were rattling so much they were literally shaking in their frames. And in the morning, I called the police to get me out of there. And 2 young men came, took me, and brought me here.
More than 150 residents of Zaporizhzhia have already reported damage or destruction of their homes. 8 people have expressed a desire to move into the shelter. Yedyni Novyny, Alexander Oleynik, Rada TV channel, National Marathon United News.
The president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, has confirmed his readiness to meet with Donald Trump, addressing the members of the coalition of willing countries. He stated that the Ukrainian and American teams have agreed on a framework for further actions in Geneva and emphasized that there are still sensitive issues that require personal discussion. Zelensky also noted that the participation of European leaders in these negotiations could be beneficial and that certain key topics are planned to be discussed in a closed format.
Right now, we have a good result from Geneva, and following the meetings and negotiations that took place there, Ukraine has a framework developed by our teams in Geneva. These frameworks have been put on the table, and we are ready to move forward together with the United States of America, with the personal involvement of President Trump, as well as with Europe, with leaders and all partners who have their own strengths and capabilities to provide assistance. I am ready to meet with President Trump, and there are sensitive issues that need to be discussed. We still have them.
U.S. President Donald Trump has already stated that he will meet with Volodymyr Zelensky only after an agreement is reached to end the Russian-Ukrainian war. In the coming days, despite Kiev's wishes, such a meeting will not take place. The American leader emphasized that there has already been some progress in resolving the conflict, and at the same time complained that his relationship with Putin did not help stop the Russian dictator. As long as Russia rejects all peace efforts, sanctions against it must be increased and defensive and financial assistance to Ukraine must continue. Volodymyr Zelensky wrote about this on social media. He thanked the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, for her speech today in the European Parliament and her clear stance in support of Ukraine. During the conversation, they also discussed the EU's work on a decision regarding the use of frozen Russian assets and directing them to support Ukraine's defense. The end of the war in Ukraine is possible as early as the end of this year. This was stated by NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte. He said this in response to a question from a journalist of a Spanish publication, while emphasizing that making accurate forecasts today is extremely difficult. Rutte also emphasized that no peace plan changes the assessment of Russia as a long-term threat to Europe.
It's always difficult to predict, but I sincerely hope that peace will come soon. Of course, after the Geneva negotiations, several more meetings need to be held, as well as separate parallel discussions of certain issues with the EU and NATO. And we haven't reached that point yet.
He also added that Ukraine will receive weapons worth $5 billion by the end of the year. According to him, the initiative was also supported by Spain, which is critically important for protecting Ukrainians from Russian missiles and drones, as well as for preserving infrastructure. Rutte emphasized that Ukraine will receive about $1 billion in military aid every month. Russia has no intention of discussing a peace plan or ceasing fire. This was stated by French President Emmanuel Macron. He emphasized that the words of Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov after the Geneva discussions confirm the Kremlin's lack of willingness to negotiate. Macron announced the creation of a working group on security guarantees for Ukraine with the participation of France, the United Kingdom, the United States and Turkey. which is set to begin its work starting today.
We have decided that starting tomorrow, we will create a working group led by France and the United Kingdom in close cooperation with Turkey, which plays a key role in the maritime domain, and for the first time, with the participation of the United States. The coming days will allow us to precisely determine the contribution of each participant and to finalize these security guarantees.
Traumatized and with difficult life experiences, it is precisely such children who most often end up in foster families. In Odessa, a 3-day training was held for families who temporarily take in young children in crisis situations. 6 families from different communities in the region, together with their biological and foster children, completed a special support program. The parents learned how to cope with emotional stress, while the children learned to feel stability and care again. How do children live and recover in foster families in the Odessa region? Svitlana Dovzuk will tell us more.
Larisa Pisla and her husband consciously chose to become foster parents. Before this, the woman had worked in a kindergarten for over 20 years, but she left her job to fully dedicate herself to children who found themselves in difficult situations. The first girl we took in was 17 years old. It was tough, but we managed with her. After some time, her parents' rights were revoked. The girl was very traumatized because her first mother abandoned her, and then her second mother also gave her up because she couldn't handle her. And when we left the court, I remember it now and want to cry, she came out and said, "I feel like an abandoned kitten."
Patronage is a temporary placement of a child in the family of a caregiver. After a certain period, the child is either returned to their biological parents, thank you, or transferred to a foster family or put up for adoption. Patronage caregivers receive a salary and assistance for caring for the child. However, the most important thing in their work, says Larisa, is the willingness to accept a child with their experiences and traumas, because some stories are truly shocking.
She came to us beaten, covered in dark, painful bruises, undressed, not even wearing any underwear, in heavy rubber boots, barefoot. And we were in the kitchen together, and she said to me, "Larisa, I was standing by the kitchen by the gas stove," and she said, "Larisa, I need to talk to you. I want to tell you something." She told me she had been raped. As I stood by the stove, I almost collapsed, of course.
Parents who once decided to become foster caregivers periodically gather for training sessions, in part to take a break. There is a risk of emotional burnout since every day they work with children who have experienced severe trauma. That is why such training meetings have already been held for the 5th time. At these events, children can try pottery, clay modeling, acting skills, while adults have time to relax and enjoy a cultural program.
They are not just people who take in orphans to raise. They are professionals who undergo appropriate training. It is a very intensive training program developed and approved by the Ministry of Social Policy. 120 hours. And directly during the training, during the course, they are taught to be professionals. How to help children, how to provide rehabilitation services, and how to offer psychological support.
Marina Huzinova learned about patronage care by chance from a television segment. She says she had no doubts at all because she and her husband had always dreamed of having a big family. Over 5 years, the family has taken in 22 children, and each of them came into the family with difficult life experiences.
They all have the same kind of trauma because their parents drink. They witness hunger, drunk parents, and poverty. For example, we've had 3 boys for half a year now, and they still don't know how to dress themselves. And the 9-year-old who's in 3rd grade can't read or write.
Currently, there are 5 children living with the Husinov family, their biological son and 4 under guardianship. 11, 10, 9, and 5 years old. Marina admits that the main thing is not to get too attached to the children. However, the hardest thing for her was letting go of a 1-month-old girl who had lived with the family for almost a year. The family wanted to adopt her, but the child was returned to her biological mother.
I was touched by that little girl who was taken away. We wanted to adopt her. We didn't want her mother to take her because we knew she wouldn't take care of her. I slept with her things for a whole week and didn't wash them so the scent wouldn't fade.
Parents say that sometimes it takes up to 5 months for children to adapt. During this time, it's important to show the child that they are safe.
Children, they're all good. There are no bad children, honestly. They come in at first like little hedgehogs. I don't know, they close themselves off. They come in so withdrawn for a month or two, and then they open up and they become completely different children. They're all so kind, they all need affection and attention.
Parents note that foster care is constant daily life, care, sleepless nights, and being ready to listen even when the child is silent. But it is precisely such families that become the first step towards stability for children and give them a chance to feel again that there are adults nearby who will not betray them. Overall, the national marathon is united,